translation of this verse: therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness, the smart Gurum Prapadyeta must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him. Prapadyeta, take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual master. So we went through various words here. Let me make it into slideshow. We went through various meanings of these words through the pastimes associated with Uddalaka Aruni, Upamanyu, and Uttanaka, who were disciples or grand disciples of Ayodhya Dhaumya. And yesterday we also learned about, from the training of Upamanyu, what should be the nature of a disciple. What is it that the teacher actually teaches? We are used to learning physics, chemistry, mathematics, arts, commerce, all that stuff in our modern education system. But the traditional educational system actually instilled character in a person. And this character molding or character development is not at all present. So one of the other key words here that we discussed yesterday is about this prapadyeta, take shelter of. What's the meaning of taking shelter of? We got to know from the life of Upamanyu, how his guru trained him, that Upamanyu was very much desirous of enjoying independently in the sense, his guru had not ordained him to eat more for whatever be the reason. As part of some training, his guru had not given him enough food according to, that is, the food that was not sufficient for his taste, but food that was good enough for him to live. And yet, Upamanyu tried various means by which he could eat much more than required. So the guru's first character development thing was, no, you be happy with what I am trying to give you. Because if you're not happy with what I'm trying to give you, you cannot pursue a life of spiritual realization. For pursuing a life of spiritual realization, one needs to have a higher strength to say no to some things and to say yes to certain things. That is why the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the same Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that the servant or disciple of the spiritual master should have these qualities. In the following slide, I'll speak about how the servant of the spiritual master should not have certain qualities. So one of this here should be that one should be free from false prestige. I'll copy all of this and send it across in our group. You should be free from false prestige. False prestige makes us think that I have these qualities here, or I am the possessor of certain things, certain objects. But a person who's actually a disciple should not be free from that false prestige. Why? Things of this world come and go, and that does not define us. A person who ascribes to himself that his identity is, I am the possessor of these things or these items of knowledge, he cannot be a prapadyeta, a person who is surrendered. A person who is surrendered has the qualification that I don't have anything. And that's the true nature of our existence. We believe that we have something, but actually it is not so. Everything, I mean, we may be in possession of great knowledge, we may be in possession of great wealth, but was it present at the time of our birth? Most likely no. Will it be present at the time of death? No. So what happens? It's just that in between, during the duration between birth and death, we ascribe to ourselves that we are the possessor of it. But we are eternal souls. We are Atma. Our Atma exists for eternity. Today I may be born in a rich family. Tomorrow in the next birth I may be born in a poor family. We don't know. Depending on our karma, we get various items. So the role of a disciple is to note that what I come in contact with during the course of different births is not what is my true identity. What is my true identity is that of my soul, and therefore he is free from false prestige. The another characteristic of this, especially in the context of him being prapadyeta, that is being surrendered, is he never considers himself to be the doer. Somebody's microphone is unmuted. Hey, Manadhan Prabhu, I'm muting you. So, in the right side is the picture of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Here you see Srila Prabhupada in a small room writing something here, and he has a book open. Srila Prabhupada, before going to the West, spent many years in Vrindavan. He took a small room in the temple of Radha Damodar in Vrindavan, and right next to that, in the temple, there is the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami was one of the most intimate associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Radha and Krishna appearing together in Kali Yuga. So Rupa Goswami was one of the most prolific acharyas in the lineage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prolific, not in the sense of the volumes of work, but having given the essence of all the literature in a condensed form, and also giving details of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And his Samadhi is there, right, in this courtyard of the temple of Radha Damodar. And Srila Prabhupada, upon his guru's order, he thought, my guru told me to write and translate the books into English language. And that's where I have to work. I don't know who is going to read, whether somebody is going to read it or not. My guru gave me that order. I have to just follow his order. He will bestow his benediction on me. And with that understanding, Srila Prabhupada was translating, not figuring out what will happen. And at that point in time, as he was translating, one evening, one late night, he had a vision. Rupa Goswami came from the Samadhi and came right in front of him. So where Srila Prabhupada was in one of the rooms in the temple, he could see the Samadhi directly. And Rupa Goswami came out of the Samadhi and he saw Srila Prabhupada saw him. And Rupa Goswami told him, you please go to the West and you please translate it. And Srila Prabhupada said, he had already translated the Bhagavad Gita, good portion of the Bhagavatam, etc. And Srila Prabhupada said, you are asking me to translate, but I don't feel I have the ability here. And I don't have the ability to go anywhere and do anything. I'm already old. And Rupa Goswami said, you just do the work. We'll take care of the rest. And armed with that empowerment, Srila Prabhupada went to the West and spread this knowledge of Bhakti all the more. So here you see that an Acharya Acharyas write something prolifically, or they may come up in giving the holy name to lots and lots of people, but yet they don't consider themselves to be the doer. They believe, oh, the previous Acharyas have empowered. They are doing everything. I am just being an instrument. And this, they don't feel it theoretically. Like in the case of Srila Prabhupada, he practically felt it. This is one of the qualifications of an Acharya. And this same qualification of the Acharya is transmitted to the disciple. So in other words, a true disciple becomes a carrier of the qualities of his guru. And this is what is required in our training. So we all, as practicing disciples, should consider this aspect very much, that we should never think I am the doer. How much I'm being empowered by others to actually act. One more, some other things here are, one should never be active and one should always be active and never lazy. We learned this in the pastime of Uttanaka, how just to satisfy his spiritual master's wife, he dug a huge hole, went to the kingdom of the Nagas, got the earrings back, and in 5 days, he actually, prior to digging that big, huge hole all the way to the Nagaloka, He actually went to the kingdom of the king, begged for earrings, everything he did in 5 days. And he learned his lesson that in the service of the spiritual master, one should be very active. Many people think spiritual life means I will leave all the jobs and my work, etc. I'm just going to sit in one corner and do nothing. No, working for Krishna is what is true spiritual life. And that is what the spiritual master teaches us. Next, I just want to go through 2 more things. Just a minute. The servant or disciple of the spiritual master, there's also some few other things here. There's a big list. Actually, it would be helpful for all of us to go through this list and see how to apply it in our own lives. But for paucity of time, I'll just go through a couple of them. Item number 3, which I've highlighted in red, and item number 18. One should not toil unnecessarily, and if a person should not earn his livelihood with difficulty. So why has this been given? These two are two different things, toiling unnecessarily and earning one's livelihood with difficulty. They are two different things, but somewhat related. Toiling unnecessarily is like, if you say, for example, if you ask most people, why do you work? I need to maintain my family. But then most people, as they keep growing in their family life, their needs increase. And therefore, they think, oh, I have to work for more number of years. I have to serve somebody and I have to do whatever he says for a good majority of the people. Or I need a business. I have to grow my business from 1 lakh per annum to 1 crore per annum. And then it becomes 100 crores per annum. But what for? One should clearly understand how much is required to maintain one's body and soul together. More than that is toiling unnecessarily, right? And then earning one's livelihood with difficulty. One should choose an occupation in which one recognizes that Krishna has provided an innate strength to each of us. Each of us has been provided with something, with some strength by which one can conduct one's occupation without too much difficulty. The problem of earning one's livelihood with difficulty is that one's consciousness gets fixed so much in solving the problem and in trying to solve it that one is unable to focus on how Krishna is helping me, what is the message of the spiritual master that I have to apply in my daily life, etc. That's the problem here. There will be difficulty, but if it is too difficult, then one has to understand one is in an unnatural state. Often being in an unnatural state does not help us to really surrender to the spiritual master and to Krishna. How does it manifest? The work becomes very difficult. Then one spends more time in the work. Then one is unable to chant every day. One is unable to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or the sacred literatures every day. And in that sense, one is not surrendering to the Supreme Lord. Surrendering to the Supreme Lord means getting time to chant, getting time to hear, getting time to serve the devotees, getting time to serve the deities, and getting time to be a part of the mission of the Guru to spread Krishna consciousness across the whole world. And if our occupation does not allow it, one should consider, is this the right occupation or should I do something else? Because these are primary things for us. What I said earlier, these are the primary things which nourishes our bhakti. Okay, I'll pause here. Any comments? Any thoughts? Yeah, Mataji, you want to say something? Or Ganesh, Salin, or his sister, either of you.
What does this mean? Like earns his livelihood with difficulty.
Earns, okay. What about it, Mataji?
And actually, it is written like the servant or the disciple of the spiritual master should not earn his livelihood with difficulty. What does that mean?
Okay, that's what I was explaining a few minutes ago. Earning livelihood with difficulty means, as I was saying, taking so much time for earning one's livelihood that one does not have time to focus on the absolute truth outside of job and during the job. One becomes so engrossed in it that one's consciousness is always on only one's job activities. But I mean, what I'm saying is one should conduct one's job too such that it is an offering to the Supreme Lord. But when the difficulty level becomes too high, we conditioned souls typically think that I have to solve the problem. We get into the mode of the doer. And in the beginning, fledgling stages of devotion, like where most of us are right now, to come out of this tendency of being a doer is very, very, very difficult. So therefore, what happens? We are in the mode of the doership, and then we cannot think, oh Krishna, please help me. That is one what you call conscious behavior or inner feeling which does not come. Second, at a macro level, we do not have time to chant. We do not have time to hear about the scriptures. We do not have time to serve the devotees. We do not have time to serve the deities. We do not have time to associate with devotees. These are the ones which actually nourish our soul. So when one earns livelihood with difficulty, and if it takes away time from spiritual pursuits, that is what which should be avoided. And try to see, is there an option? In some cases, there may be no other option, but praying to Krishna and taking guidance of other devotees helps. That it becomes very tough. Like say, for example, some people work 18 hours a day, 15 hours a day. And it may be some of them are very poor. They may be working in coal mines, etc. But then even such people, if they take the guidance of a sincere devotee, they could find that Krishna has actually given enough for everybody. There are ways and means by which one can be happy to keep his body and soul together and yet have time for spiritual pursuits. That is what I meant, Mataji. You have a concern on that? No. Okay. Any other comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Pranam.
There is one point about not being poor, 6 point. So now poor typically in conditioned state is attributed to the money. And money is a result of our previous activities, karma. So we have very little or no more control on how we can be. So how do we understand this word poor when it is given as a characteristics of the man, because it's not from the material perspective? So can you please throw some light on that?
See, here, when what happens, these are all not for a very highly elevated person, but this is all these characteristics, what should be avoided, are for mostly people like me at my level here, I should say. When a person is very poor, it is very similar to this point number 18 that we just discussed. When a person is too poor, what you see here is they will say, I am so poor that I have to just take care of food and clothing, etc. And this itself is very tough. Whereas the Brahmanas of yore, and who are also the nice devotees, they would live by begging. And some days they would get some food to eat, some days they would not get food to eat. And they would be happy with it. That was the case for a person who is already elevated to some degree. But then those who are too poor, mostly their focus will go on how to alleviate the poverty. And therefore, a disciple's notion, a person who is a disciple has approached a spiritual master for, please help me get out of this conditioned life. For a person who's too poor, he is not able to focus because the pangs of hunger, the pangs of thirst is too much. He is just there to satisfy it. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada used to say, if a person is at that level, first give him some prasadam to eat. Alleviate the result of that poverty first, and then let him come up. But some people are actually rich and they become poor because of bad investment, bad usage of money, being frivolous in spending, etc. And what happens to such people is they want to regain their wealth once more. So in such cases, their consciousness is focused on, I had so much, I lost everything, I want to come back to that state. Even such a person, he will not open his heart. Mostly they don't open their heart to spiritual realization because their mind and consciousness is filled with other objectives. So for a disciple to prapadyeta or prapatti or surrender, he should not have unwanted desires. And many of these are those unwanted desires here. So these are the necessary qualifications. And most of us, actually, if you look at it, we all are disqualified because we all have most of these qualifications. And if you observe carefully, it is in the process of bhakti is such that when we discuss about these qualities in the company of devotees, then slowly we begin to understand that this is not what we should be having. We begin to have an appreciation for it. And because of this appreciation, Krishna, who stays within the core of our heart, cleanses us of these tendencies, and then we become qualified to become disciples. So the import of this list here is, this is from the Hari Bhakti Vilas, association of devotees and hearing of this message of the sacred scriptures is very much essential to even prepare us to be a disciple who can surrender to the spiritual master. Is this of any help, Yugala Kishore Prabhu?
Yes, bro. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What's your question? Here there's Mother Priya with a question. Please do so.
So I have a question that if poor people come to us for money and we don't know what background they are coming from, like suppose they want to use that money for drinking wine or doing some bad things, then how do we know? Like we should give them money, but
so yeah, I got your question. So one should be considerate to everybody in this world, and therefore it is better that whenever we enter out of the house, we carry some prasadam with us. We take some food, we take food at home, we offer it to the Supreme Lord, saying, Prabhupada, you are an Acharya, you please offer this food to Krishna. I myself don't have any qualification. And in that mood, we offer food to the deities or the picture of the deities at home. And then we take a portion of this food, something dry item, etc., when we go out, and give food to such devotees. So when we go in a car or a scooter or even by walking, if somebody just give a box of it to them so that they can eat it. So we should be proactive in that, in providing something for others.
Yes, but if the beggars are they are Muslims or someone like that, they would not accept Hindu person.
That is their choice. We can't do anything.
What if they accept it and
we can't do anything with others' choices? That's it. I think it's more time. We took more time today, just Friday, end of the week, just to wrap it up. Next week, we'll go further about the spiritual master. Whom to accept, whom not to accept. What's the right qualification of spiritual master, and what is it? So we'll do that. Okay, just before that, Himabindu Mataji, I see your mic is on. You want to say something?
No, sir. Actually,
No.
3-4 days I was not feeling well, so I could not attend the class. Now today, okay. So sorry for the not attending the classes. That's what I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you. Please do come in the future. The classes are, I can send you the link. The classes have been recorded. Maybe in YouTube, I'll send the link too.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And maybe one last thing here. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you Guru.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.